today we're going to be doing a oil change and an air filter change on this Astra K. This is the 1.4 125 brake horsepower model, and there is no dipstick, which is something in common with a lot of modern cars. No dipstick seems to be the way forward these days for some reason. So oil wise, these are very sensitive to the type of oil that you put in them. There was a revision of the engine management program and the oil that they needed in around 2017 or so to help prevent low speed pre-ignition, or LSPI, which is something that small turbocharged engines can suffer from. And I've just realised there is a dipstick, it's right there. So the only dipstick is the one on the other side of the camera. And there it is. So anyway, we are going to renew the oil, renew the filter, and also do the air filter as well. So we're going to start off by removing the cap and putting that somewhere safe. And have a look at the handbook to see how much oil we need to put in. It's 4 litres, as I checked earlier. Let's take a quick look. And we're looking at there we go, engine oil capacities, 4 litres. I think this one is the B14XFL, if I remember rightly. Right, so let's get underneath and have a look at what we need to do to get to the sump plug. Oh, not as terrible as I thought. So the sump plug is there, and it's a hex fitting, so that's nice. So it looks like we just need to remove or lower this, which has a selection of 8mm on it, and then we'll be able to get to the sump plug itself. So let's get out the 8mm and let's get rid of this. This also gives us a chance to check the subframe, because these covers are all well and good for aerodynamic purposes, but they can promote moisture ingress into the subframe and ultimately promote rust. So let's get that off and see where we are. So what I've done is I've lowered this enough so I can get a drain bowl under there. Also gives us a good look at the subframe, and it's got a lot of surface rust on it. So another time what we'll have to do is get this up, get the wire brush out and start giving this a good clean up. Now this bolt is longer than the others, and what I've done is I've just put it back into there so that I know where it comes from. They're not actually, as I thought, 8mm, they're actually 7mm, so that's just worth bearing in mind. And yeah, you can see the subframe is okay, but the main thing is it is solid, but it would benefit from a bit of a clean up. So let's start with this. This looks, I want to say 15mm, and looking at it, I was wondering if it still had the Torx. Yeah, it's still got the Torx thing in the middle, so it works with, it sort of sticks to tradition in GM way. They're having a Torx thing in the centre. You can either use the Torx bit or a hex head bit, or a hex socket rather. So let's have a look at what size I think it might be. Okay, so I guessed 15, it's actually 14. So what we'll do is we'll get a bucket under here, or a tray, and get this drained off. Also, what's quite nice is the filter is right here, so there's no reaching up around the back of the engine to get to the oil filter. Also quite nice is it is a spin-on filter. Looks like the previous person used a Crossland filter. We'll be using a MANN filter, which is GM's OEM provider for this particular era. Right, obviously be wary because this engine is warm. It is always best to drain oil when the engine is warm, so you don't want to get burnt. Make sure that you're wearing suitable hand attire. Right, here we go. Right, let's get this done. So we've got our bowl placed. I've loosened this off a touch, and I'm going to move my hand one side, so that's already started to drip. This is why you want to wear gloves. It's actually just coming out, there's no sort of halfway point, it's just going to go. Another thing is make sure that your gloves are resistant to oil. Some gloves are not, so it's just something to bear in mind. Put the sump plug out of the way, and we'll just let this drain. Whilst it's draining, what we can do is just pull this forward a bit, and we can attack the oil filter. So let's get that off. So what I've done is I'm using this sort of chain whip thing, and I've tightened it around the filter. As you can see, it's nice and tight around there. You need two hands to get it in, and then whilst holding it in place, you tighten the ratchet a little bit. But after a little while, then move it back round, get it into a new position of grip. You can, as you can see, gradually work the filter off without having to spear it or anything of that sort of nature. You can get those sort of tri-pronged affairs, which actually do a better job than this, but they can be quite expensive, and these sort of chain ones are quite cheap, and they're actually ideal for filters in this sort of position because they're really easy to get to. I think that's a little bit stiff still, so we'll need to get the thing back onto that. So I'm going to get that off, and then we can carry on. So after a short time we get to a point where the filter will spin off. So make sure that you've got your receptacle ready to catch it, because it will surprise you. So make sure that you've still got the sump draining, and you can leave that to sort of drain a little bit as well. That won't last too long, that's just going to be oil that's in the pump housing itself. And what we need to do now is very gently unscrew the filter, like so. And then lower it down. So you need to be a little bit careful because it will spill, and then you can just pop it into your drainage tray. So what I tend to do is I let this sort of filter area drain for a little bit, then check if there's any rubber accumulated on here from the filter itself. You only tend to find that if the filter has been on the car for a really long time. If you're doing an oil change once or twice a year, you're not going to experience that. But if the filter's been on there for, well, forever, you might get the rubber gasket on the filter staying on the mating face here, and that job becomes a lot worse. Thankfully this one is nice and clean. So what we'll do now, and there's sort of two schools of thought on this one, is some people say leave the filter empty. If the filter's in this position, I like to fill it because it means that the oil pump gets up to pressure quicker and you're not having to spend the time cranking and that initial idle actually filling the pump. So filling the pump with oil and ultimately filling the filter with oil as well. Right, I'm going to go and get the filter and then we'll refit the filter. So this is the new filter in place and I've just done it on literally just finger tight for now. So what I'm going to do is put it on a little bit tighter. So I'm going to go just over hand tight, so it doesn't need to be wrenched on with any additional tools or anything. It literally needs to just be placed in position. Now this filter is actually slightly shorter in length than the Crossland filter that was on there previously. Certain filter manufacturers may have different looking filters, but essentially they have the same fitting and diameter at the top, and it is worth just cross-referencing that number anyway. So we can actually check that now, make sure we're okay. So that's W7056. So a quick cross-reference actually does suggest that this is indeed the correct filter. It actually fits a number of different engines in the Vauxhall range, ranging from the 1 litre up to, I think, the 1.6. So that's the more modern 1 litres. The 3-cylinder turbo ones, or later ones anyway. It fits the Astra K, which is what this is, and it fits the B14 XFL, which is what this engine is. So we are good. So I'm just going to put the sump plug back on. A copper washer is always recommended, so I put one of those on before putting that on there. And we don't need to do, as always, we don't need to do this up super tight. We just need to go just over hand tight on the ratchet. So you don't want to strip threads, and that is something I have done once on an old 2.7 litre Rover Vitesse that I owned, and I did it up too tight, ended up stripping the thread, had to drop the exhaust downpipe, which obviously, because it's a V6, is mounted up there and around the back. That had to come off, and then I had to take the sump off and then replace the sump, which was character building, let's say. Right, let's get this one done up again. So obviously this is a 14 as before. So that's tight, and there, just over hand tight. Right, let's go and pop in some oil. So we're using a funnel this time, always a good idea as it saves spillage, and thankfully, because we're using the genuine GM motor oil, it has a rather nice little, well, it's 5 litres for one, but it has a rather nice little indicator on the side as to how much we've used. So we need to get it down to, so that there's 1 litre left, because the engine takes 4 litres. And it is essential that you use the latest version of Dexos 1 for this engine. I think it's either 0W20 or more modern literature points to it being 5W30. So I'm actually using 5W30 on this occasion. A failure to use the correct oil will, not wanting to sound too doom and gloom, but will actually cause damage to the engine. So that's going in nicely. Right, I've got to carry on with this, and we'll be back on the first start. Okay, so we've just filled it up back with oil, or filled it back up with oil. check for any leaks, and let's go and turn the car on. Right, here we go. So we'll need to reset the oil level, change oil soon warning in a moment, but no horrible noises, which is always good. No horrible rattling at the top end, which is always nice. You just hear the injectors and the cooling fan. So let's have a quick look underneath. Nothing leaking. So all we need to do now is reset the oil service indicator and put this back on, and also just do that air filter. So to reset, engine needs to be off. We need to do ignition on. Then we need to do, should turn everything off there, menu. Should just clear that. So menu. Then remaining oil life. It has reset. So we do press in the button and hold, and it will say, so that's this end button here, just in case you're wondering. It will say, are you sure you wish to reset? So we go yes, and there we go. The counter will start counting down again. So the way this one's been done is it counts on an annual basis. So when you get from now to 12 months time, the oil change warning will come up again. And there we go, that's done. So that is all we need to do. Right, let's get that air filter done. Well, that's handy. If you ever need to drive one of these through a deep flood, it actually has a very high inlet. So this actually needs to come off. Literally just goes sort of under there. Well, kind of, probably like that. Somehow. I managed to get it out just now. Kind of like that. And then that goes down like that, and that sits about here, so just behind there. So there are screws under there which we need to get to, so we need to pop the tab in here and then lift this out, put that to one side. We've got a screw here, 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 and I think that's it. So I've actually got the air filter out without removing the sensor connector, and what we'll do is give us a bit of a general sort of clean out if we can. Ideally you want to get a vacuum cleaner in here just to clear up all of this. So actually, let's go and do that now. There we go. I'll actually leave that out to give the interior a clean in a bit. So let's pop that here. That is my Hoover Constellation, which is an antique vacuum cleaner. We'll probably do a video on that at some point. So this, I've never seen one like this before. So I've seen filters this shape, but not one put in like so. So you've actually got some clips here, which I'm guessing go in and work out, oh yeah, like that. And then that's that, that's the filter off. It's quite an unusual filter actually. not actually that dirty. You can still see sunlight through it, so it's probably absolutely fine. But since we have the filter anyway, we may as well do it. And also this one's a Crossland, and I'm not a fan of Crossland filters. And just take a look at them, see how they differ. And interestingly, they actually come with this piece. I didn't think that would be something supplied with the filter, but well, looks like it is. So back to the car. Guess that just goes over there, and this just goes so over there, down. Just need to make sure it's over that at the bottom. Then I'd say like so, and then this one up here. And that's, well, that's literally it. So that is, I guess that's in place, because yeah, you just squeeze that in, it comes out, put it in like so, and it's in. And just make sure that that is firmly in place. Make sure that that's around the bottom, which it is. And then this can go back over like so. And you don't need to remove the connector, thankfully. What we will do is just put this back into there in a moment, once we're down. Now the screws actually stay in the top cover, so you don't need to worry about losing the screws themselves. They actually do stay where you hope they would. So we just need to make sure that this is perfectly in position. Which is a little easier said than done. To do now is just tighten it up. So what I'm going to do off camera is put the under tray back on. There isn't really much to show with that, it's just reverse of removal. And that's it. So that is basically how to do a quick oil and filter change and air filter renewal on an Astra K. Anyway, thank you very much for watching.